everybody. This is Maggie from the Positude shows, the Positude Podcast, Positude-Prophecies, Positude Passages, and Positude PowWOW. And tonight I have a guest on as well. Normally we're messing with the lineup a little bit. Normally this would be a different show, but because of the information that I was able to discover, I wanted to do another PowWOW tonight. So this is going to be airing on Sunday. Thanks for joining us. In light of, you hear a lot about conspiracy theories. I'm pretty skeptical by nature, but every so often I read or I watch a story and it hits me in the gut. I look into somebody's eyes, I see the pain there, I hear the anguish, the sadness, and I feel that, and when I get to read a written article about something that or wants to be shed to the public, the emotion there, when I feel it's real, it cuts me to the bone. And I can tell that the person's telling me the truth. After reading Lisa Black from last week, I was driven to contact her and also my next guest, whose video I worked all night. It was 5:30 in the morning. I was tired and I was scrolling through some music videos and some other videos, and I came across this by accident, and I thought to myself, I'll watch it in the morning. But something about this man's face made me sit down and watch it that time, right then, 5:30 in the morning. And so I watched it once and then I watched it over. And I thoroughly believe this man is telling the truth. And I believe that there are a lot of things that he can share with us to not only shed some light on some of the things that are going on in our country behind the scenes, but also in hopes that people who are in future hurricane paths or paths of natural disaster, so that they can be better aware to prepare themselves and to know what to look for, signs to look for, and in order to be able to protect themselves and take care of their families. So this man's got to get on the road in a couple of hours. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you all Matthew Short, whose Facebook video I had found, just as I said, by accident. And I'll give you the links to that after the interview. And Matthew, are you there?
I am. Thanks for having me on today. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for coming on and taking the time out. I know how busy you are. So basically, I'd like to just ask you a couple brief questions. How did you get involved in this type of movement, and how long have you been involved in it?
I've been an activist I'm a tenured activist. I've been doing things of this nature for a long time. I'm the PR director for Come and Take It Texas and don'tcomply.com. And we are the groups who started the open carry movement in Texas. I got involved with the open carry movement in Texas after catching the government at the West Texas blast. And I have been through several major disasters of this nature. Today we're talking about Hurricane Harvey. And so I know the things to look for. I'm involved with militia out of Texas. And so as the story unfolds, if you listen to what's going on, this is how I know lots of people with guns and lots of people that understand how to see these things coming.
Wow. So you got sent to Texas. Can you talk a little bit about how that transpired without giving away too much of what you're not supposed to share? How did you hear about the flooding? Were you in Texas at the time? Because I know that you said in your video you reside out of state. How did that transpire for you?
I'm actually right now in the Ozarks in Missouri with my family, decompressing, taking some family time. But I've lived in Texas for the last 12 years and out of Waco in the DFW area. And I was traveling back from California on a personal trip when the hurricane was hitting, and I knew I had to get back to Texas because things were going to need to be done.
Wow. And so you just, basically got your guys together and went?
Yeah, as PR director of don'tcomply.com and Come and Take It Texas, we stay very active as activists down there. And as soon as this natural disaster was happening, as I said before, I've been in them before, and I know how FEMA and other of these alphabet agencies deal with the public. And so we decided very quickly to get involved, and my entire organization was involved. It was just me and a couple others that were on the ground in the midst of it. I saw that the Cajun Navy and Texas Navy were out saving people, and I just knew that the FEMA and the feds were going to be there shutting down roads and doing some of the things they did during Katrina. So we went ahead and got a boat and a truck and went down there and tried to find these guys and hook up with them as quickly as possible.
Right. And then once you connected, you said in your video how you kind of set up camp on a high area of ground, and you talked about the fact that the dams were going to be released and the people were going to be flooded. Can you talk just a little bit about that?
The first night I was there, I actually met up with some South Texas militia that were set up in the middle of Houston at a compound that they had created out of a liquor vending store in a strip mall, and they used the fence line in the back alley of the strip mall for security to be able to secure their vehicles and their boats. And the first night I was there, I realized that I was in a situation like the Purge, because all I could hear was glass breaking, car alarms going off, and gunshots. And I wanted to get out very quickly and get out to the rescues and stuff, but that night there was enough violence going on around us that the militia actually wouldn't let me leave the compound once they had it locked down until sunrise. And that next morning we immediately started going to rescues and weren't able to get too much done before we were getting word that the lakes were flooding bad enough that they were going to have to release the pressure on them. But what we were also hearing was they were not doing evacuations before they were releasing some of these dams. So there was an urgency to get to these different areas and get people out before they re-flooded them after the hurricane had already flooded them in. From there, I went and hooked up with the Cajun Navy and Texas Navy guys out of the Woodlands. And that first morning that I was with them, they actually started putting DPS agents on our boats, which for those of you who aren't in Texas, DPS is the Highway Patrol. They were putting CID members, which is criminal investigation detectives, on our boats because they were hunting looters. There was at least a couple gun stores that had been broken into, and gangs had actually taken firearms out of these places and were using them to go, and they were robbing people of the rescuers of their boats. They were going to people's homes and pretending like rescuers, and then once they would open their doors and come out, they would rob them. And so there was a lot of violence and things. And what people don't understand about these scenarios is in a disaster area, whether it's man-made or whether it's natural, the first 72 hours is the most critical time, because there's going to be a breakdown of law enforcement. There's going to be lawlessness happening. That's very much like the Purge. And there's going to be your average good people who are trying to stay in their homes and trying to stay out of it. And there's going to be gang members and criminals that are going out there using this time to take to their advantage to hurt, rob, rape, kill, murder people, and the sorts. So we went driving around, and I missed the first chance to be able to get into the water, and we got rerouted back to Katy, Texas, where we stopped at one of the malls off of I-10, and they were setting up FEMA, FBI, DEA, DHS. There was Oklahoma Rescue, there was Texas Rescue there, and it was pretty much all hands on deck because they were getting ready to flood the Addicks Dam. Now, what I was told when I was there at the FEMA spot where they were setting up, and if those of you that hear the conspiracies about Walmart and malls and stuff like that being used, they're always going to use big buildings like that of corporations that will work with the government because they have the parking lots and the resource structures to be able to actually do that. So they're setting up the FEMA controlled area at one of the malls there off I-10. And what I was told by them was they were going to blow the dam. And that was the word that they used with me. So I immediately put that out on Facebook. I was doing all of this live Facebook feeds because most of my people in Texas pay attention to our Facebooks and stuff. And it was the quickest way I was able to get information out to everybody else at a large number.
Right. And I've seen a couple of videos about the FEMA camps in Walmart, and the fences that go up around and the barbed wire on top. And I got to be honest, I'm totally a believer in that. And you've eyewitnessed it firsthand. Is there anything that you can tell me that maybe you hadn't previously aired?
I've been pretty open about my story, so
yep.
There's not. I mean, there was some other things that happened later on in the week, but just for my mind, I got to kind of keep it on the timeline. After I was told they were gonna release the dam, and we were told they were gonna blow the dam. So people said I was fear-mongering because they were going to blow it up. They didn't blow it up. They ended up releasing the dam, which flooded an area. And some of the areas had not been evacuated. And I was told I wasn't able to make it to there because I had been stopped by FEMA and then by the roadblocks. And that's why I was stuck at the FEMA side of this mall. And when we made it back to the church in the Woodlands where we were stationed at, our guys were coming back. One boat had saved 100 people that day. And this was only after the DPS, State Highway Patrol agents, went up and told FBI and Secret Service to get out of their way. They were going to save Texans because they had blocked off the roads to these neighborhoods. And with the State Highway Patrol there with our boats, they were able to tell the feds to get out of the way and were able to rescue several hundred people that day.
That's amazing.
That night we were told to go home and rest and wake up and be ready for the next part of our adventure.
That's just so amazing to me. The fact that people were left in their homes virtually to drown or to be trapped there to fend for themselves. And the fact that you and what I'd like to call your unit, I don't know if that's the proper terminology, but that you were able to work with these other folks from the state that were moralistic and wanted to save lives. That's just truly heroic to me, and it's very touching to me that guys like you exist. That's just, I'm overwhelmed with that, you know. And the fact that they weren't allowing people to be informed, that they weren't telling people of what they had planned to do, it sickens me right to my core, you know. I've seen so many posts about, you know, just guys with boats going out there and rescuing people and animals and getting people to safety. That's just so amazing to me, you know, to hear these stories. What would you recommend in a situation like this? You know, we watch the news, we see the hurricanes coming. For people that are in areas that are potentially going to be hit, preparedness to me is, you know, like breathing. I feel that if there's a natural disaster that's impending in our area, or even just in the event of a power outage in the winter, it's important for people to stock up on food and water and ways to protect themselves. Is there anything that you could recommend that maybe could help people to prevent some of these things being as horrific as some of the stories that you were able to share with us in your video?
Yeah, I would say that anybody, you know, needs to have a firearm or a way to protect themselves. As I was saying before, the first 72 hours is most critical in a disaster like this, because once you go 72 hours without water or food, almost anybody will be at the point of ready to break in and theft and things of that nature just for life safety for yourself. You have to have water to live. So I would say always have water on hand, and always have some sort of food, whether it's dry goods or MREs or something of that nature. They're really easy to buy these days. There's a lot of prepper sites out there. It's not very expensive for you to have a week or a month's worth of food on hand that is actually storable. And then the main thing is, when these things happen, you need to not lose your calm. There are so many people that I saw that emotionally just couldn't handle it. People are so stuck in their lives these days with all the amenities of modern society, whether it's your phone or electricity or things of that nature, that when those are gone, people don't know how to handle themselves. And the first thing they do is freak out. The best thing you can always do in these situations is stay calm. Realize that if you make wise decisions, that you'll probably make it out.
Yeah, I've been kind of an advocate, and I tell people on all of my shows too, to get to know the people in your community, you know, talk to those neighbors, because you never know. There may be a time where, you know, you may be needing their help and they'll be needing yours, and together you can work together to help maybe other people in your community or help each other. You touched briefly about in your video about the gun confiscation. Are you able to talk about any of that at all and maybe elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, the next morning after the Addicts Dam incident in Katy, Texas, we were rallied up at like 7 o'clock in the morning, where a member of the State Department, the federal State Department, came in and was there as a volunteer. He was off duty that morning and that day, and was using his badge and his truck with his lights on it and told us that they were going to be releasing the dams in the Beaumont, Orange, Vidor, Port Arthur area. Some of this area had already been underwater and flooding for days, and they were just going to add that much more to it. That some of these roads were locked down, and they hadn't had a chance to do rescues before they were going to be releasing these waters again. So they told us the day before when we were with the State Highway Patrol, they told us they wanted us armed on our boats. They were hunting looters. They wanted us armed also. And the next morning, the State Department guy warned us that the local areas of Beaumont, Port Arthur, said that if they caught anybody with a firearm, they would be handcuffing them and taking them to jail, and they would be confiscating their firearms. I kept my mouth shut up until this point with these people, although I was advising my own people in the back end what was going on, and that I was going in with this group because they were talking about doing gun confiscations. So he got us into the Beaumont area where we stopped at a church, and we were able to go past all of the roadblocks and everything with his assistance. So we were the only civilian crews that got into these areas that had been locked down and flooded. And we did have to pass through like 2 foot of water on a couple of highways to even get there. So when we got there, we had a meeting, and he declared that our mission was going to be called Templar 1. If we told local law enforcement that code, they would let us pass and let us into the waters to be able to do rescues. We then convoyed over to a Walmart store that FEMA had set up in their parking lot and was handing out supplies at. There's also an academy and a Lowe's there. It was 3 main big buildings and parking lot bigger than you can think of to be able to set up. We had about 35 boats with us and probably about 50 vehicles with people in it at that moment. And we met up with some more state workers and federal workers at that area, where we joined a larger convoy and went down into the downtown Beaumont area. And that's when the State Department official told us that he was going to have to leave us there. We were on our own at this point in time, and in 1 hour we were going to be under 4 foot of water. Find high ground and good luck. So we were left there in the middle of the flood, basically to be flooded in. A couple of our guys said, "You left us here to die," and a couple of them actually freaked out and left. But we were able to rally back at the church that we started at, and that's where we started setting up. We set up a medical area. We set up an area for supplies to come in, and they were housing search and rescue people, but didn't want to take in any evacuees because they didn't have the resources for evacuees. And our medical area was being set up for rescuers that were being hurt because there was people that were getting into gunfights. There were looters that were trying to steal the boats. 2 of the rescuers were electrocuted going into houses that were underwater that still had their electricity running. One of the rescuers that I know of was run over by a boat and chopped up. And another one was shot in the leg, but he lived. Is probably still going through some recovery and stuff right now. And I started making the public call for supplies and for guys. And by about midnight that night, we had over 100 armed militia there. And we had the police stop by because they were concerned that there was a lot of people stacking up with firearms, long guns, and that sort of thing. And what I was planning on was humanitarian missions to go into Vidor, Golden, and other places. We were cut off with communications from the people who we had been dealing with. And so we set up in such a way that we were going to be able to still run these and go out. We were using the Zello apps, and we were using different things to keep in contact with each other. We were getting people calling in for rescues. They were in their flooded homes. They were in their attics. And because of the nature of the police being there, talking about doing gun confiscations, they then could not do much of anything to us. I remember talking to one of the members of law enforcement and told him, my group is the guys who just changed the laws in this state as far as firearms and knives go. And if you're telling me that you're going to be arresting people for firearms, I will make the call and I will have 1,000 armed men down here, and then you'll be dealing with more of us. And they kind of backed off from that. And I believe that we stopped a gun confiscation in that area because we were able to be there and talk to them and tell them they were violating state law, and that I would contact my congressmen and senators that I've worked with to change these laws over the last couple of years. So then we were trying to put armed militiamen on boats full of supplies and medical supplies and water to go into these areas to do rescues and to make sure that they were secured for other Texans, because there was a lawlessness going on. There was gunfights going on. About the time we had about 100 to 150, I'll stop. If you have any questions, stop me and I'll try and answer them for you.
Oh, that's okay. I'm just letting you go and letting you get your thoughts and your experiences out there, because I think it's really important for people to understand, especially living in a very, what's classified as somewhat of a liberal state. A lot of people are naysayers and feel that guns are bad and people shouldn't have guns. But in a situation like this, a weapon is going to be the only way that you can protect yourself and your family from these looters coming in and from these bad guys coming in and potentially, as you said earlier, murdering or raping, stealing from the little bit of supplies that you may have on hand that you need in order to determine your family's survival. I think it's so important that people understand how important it is to be able to protect yourself in a time like this. If you have anything to add to that, or just, I'm going to let you talk and say what you want to say.
I was only there for a week, and it was my job to be down there during the worst part of it. And this is during the flooding, during evacuations, during the time and period where it's very hardcore, like the purge, and having people there to actually protect Texans, because I'll tell you, FEMA was there, the National Guard was there. I've got video and witnessed them actually trying to take supplies from people. They did come into our area and request our supplies from us. But like I said, having armed people there allowed for us to be able to protect those supplies and actually continue to send those out to the public. And what I do in these situations, I do not deal with FEMA. I do not deal with them, because I've seen it firsthand several times. What FEMA will do, they'll come in, they'll confiscate your goods, and instead of getting them out to the people, they'll take them to a warehouse and they'll ask people to come in and fill out applications to get supplies for survival. So these people that are starving and needing water, sorry, I'm not trying to get worked up here, but it makes me so angry, because what they do is they actually keep the supplies from being able to protect these people in their lives when they need it the most, which is during this time period. So we were able to back them off, but we also saw local emergency services coming to us and saying, what you're doing is illegal, but here's 100 cases of water. Keep up the good work. So there's a civil war in effect going on in this situation, where you have members of the government who are coming in and trying to steal your ability to help people. And you've got the other ones going around the law and saying, I know what you're doing is technically illegal, but you're doing more than we can do. So here's a bunch more supplies, and keep doing what you're doing. Put it on your boats and take it to the people and protect these people. So that's what we were doing. And we were using our armed men to protect those supplies and to get them into the neighborhood where they could protect these families and pull them out. And late that night, about 2-3 o'clock in the morning, we had private contractors come in. I would put them up as probably Blackwater XE. These groups are known for going into Iraq and murdering people. I did personally hear them talking about hunting people. I think on a certain level they were wanting to hunt looters. But if you understand what I was saying about the fact 3 days in, if you're thirsty or hungry, you might go into your neighbor's house and try and find food and water because you're stuck in the middle of a flood and you have to survive. Well, then you're considered a looter, and somebody might just shoot you and kill you because you're trying to survive. And what we didn't want happening was innocent people being shot. But I did have boats coming back and saying that they were finding bodies full of holes. And those bodies would be GPS marked, because in an emergency survival search and rescue situation, you don't pull bodies onto your boats. You go out and you find live people and you bring them in. And when they were flooding these dams, they were washing those bodies out to sea. And I know for a fact, Thomas Jefferson, I think middle school in Port Arthur, had evacuated a bunch of people and then locked in a bunch of people into their gymnasium that started flooding. We sent a security force over there to make sure those people weren't drowning inside the gymnasium. There was about 100, I think somebody told me there was almost 1,000 people there.
Wow.
So we were able to get some resources to them, make sure that they weren't flooding. They actually were up in the bleachers out of the water, but New York Times and other people did a story about this, and you can look it up. Thomas Jefferson, Port Arthur, the gymnasium was flooding, their beds were going underwater. So this situation, in my mind, some of the government agencies are there literally to hunt people. Some of them are there to control the situation. You can't control floodwaters. You can't control people in this manner, because locking them in only gives them a chance to die. Not evacuating them while you flood them gives them a chance to drown in their homes. And we were witnessing this firsthand. Our guys are witnessing bodies that were there one day, and after they flooded, were not the next. So they were washing people out to sea. And I guarantee you that the numbers are way higher than what they've publicly announced. The bodies they actually recovered because of this. Once they get washed out to sea, sharks and stuff eat them, and they're never to be found again. They're just going to be on a missing list now.
Okay. We have about 6 minutes left. Can you talk just really quickly about the ships that you were talking about into your interview, or rather in your video?
Yeah. Here on the backside of all the flooding and us being down there, FEMA is still working in the area. There are people who need homes, that their homes have been destroyed, and so they brought in these what we call prison ships, and they're actually set up to be prison ships. If you read into the documentation of them, once you get on these ships, you're now out on international waters. You're not protected by the Constitution or your natural rights under the law of the sea. And FEMA has been caught doing some really bad things, including using these private contractors. And, I hate to be the doomsday scenario guy, but you go out on those ships, you might not come back. There are people within the government that find jobs like that because they want to be able to do evil underneath the power of those things. These ships are set up to control you and keep you locked down and take you outside of an area that you're not within that constitutional law anymore. and nobody's ever really seen these until now, and they're being brought into Port Arthur at this point in time to put these people out on these ships.
And that's why, again, it's so important for people, to band together and do what you can as a community and for yourselves and for your family to make sure that in the event of an occurrence of something like this, that you don't have to rely on those means, that you don't need to feel like you have to go to a local center, so that you're able to help each other. I think it's so important. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us in closing? I so appreciate, again, you're taking the time. I know you're heading out here in a couple hours. But are there any closing statements, maybe any information that you'd like to share regarding your YouTube site so that people can watch your stuff? And again, I'll put the link at the end of the interview. But just so that people can be maybe able to contact you and watch more of your information as it comes out, Facebook, whatever you've got.
I'm the Shelby Baby on YouTube. I'm the PR director with don'tcomply.com. We're involved with a lot of activism. But really, if anything, I want to use the last minute of my time to say that a lot of the stories you're hearing about the government helping people and doing that is them scratching their own back. And I don't want to scratch my own back. I want to say the reason that this wasn't Katrina and we didn't have the numerous deaths and the destruction was because there was Americans and Texans helping Texans save their lives. These people that went out on their boats are the real heroes. They saved tens of thousands of people. They stopped the government from locking people in and essentially killing more people than should have been damaged. And if you get a chance, tell the Cajun Navy and the Texas Navy that they're heroes. They're the ones that really changed history in this deal. And that's what America's supposed to be about. It's supposed to be us and the individual and our individual rights to be able to protect one another. That's why guns are important. That's why the ability to protect ourselves are important. And that's why you should get the hell out of the way when these guys are there to help protect their fellow man, because what happened was good people saved people down there. And that's why it wasn't Katrina. Those are the true heroes.
Absolutely in agreement. And again, your efforts and those of your friends and the people that helped you, from the sounds of it, most of you are just average guys, some of you maybe with a little bit of background, that were out there saving people and helping people. And thank you so much for taking the time out to come on and for all of your public awareness videos that you're doing to get the word out so that people understand that this is not a conspiracy theory. Just God bless you and all of you people that you work with, and for everything that you do. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you. And anything I can do to help you, from here, please let me know.
Well, you're doing it right here, and that way people know in the future that the way that these things go down, protect yourselves, be prepared. Don't lose your mind in this scenario. Keep calm. Say a prayer, do some meditation if you need to, because all of those things that if you don't do those, you're going to be stuck in a situation where it might cost you your life. And don't go to FEMA, don't go to the Red Cross. All they're going to do is lock you in somewhere, which actually might kill you also. And I've witnessed it firsthand. I want people to be able to take care of themselves. I care about people, and that's why we do what we do.
Yeah, absolutely, without question. Thank you so much. We're going to stop the interview, but just hang on with me for a minute. Don't hang up, because I'd like to talk to you for just a minute more, okay?
Okay.
All right. There you go, folks. That's this man telling the God's truth. I believe it with every fiber of my being. And thank you again for all of your efforts and for the people that work with you for doing everything that you can possibly do to help the American people. Thanks again.
Yeah. Way out on Thunder Island, there lived a man with a voice like a roar. Or he'd just as soon blow your head off if you put your foot in his door. Well, this man never smiled in the daytime, 'cause he hated his toothless grin. And everyone said he was a devil. He had a face that was worse than sin. One night in my boat, it was stormy, and the waves pounded all around. Then I saw a light in the distance, and I thought it was a nearby town. So I turned my boat in its direction, but a wave came over the side. And if not for a hand out of nowhere, well, I know I'd have surely died. Next thing I saw was the sunshine, but I'd never seen this place before. As I got up and looked through a window, a huge man walked through the door. He said, well, you've been here for 3 days, but I can see that you're feeling fine. You're lucky I got you out of the water, or son, you would have been in a bind. Well, he fed me up at the table, and we talked to many things. And I knew he was a good man, except for his toothless grin. Well, he took me back to the mainland. Well, I owed this man my life. I said, how can I repay you? He said, just meeting you was nice. Well, I told the town my story and how they got this old man wrong. And so we all chipped in at the dentist, and we sent him some teeth to John. Now if you're ever out of Thunder Island, you hear a man with a voice like a roar. It's just his way of being friendly. He's saying, hey son, come up to shore. Well, I'll feed you up at the table, and I'll talk many things. And don't you ever be scared, boy, 'cause he sure has a lovely grin.
That song was provided to me by a friend of mine who does original music, used to do original music, and hasn't made his stuff available to the public. I don't believe he's got a SoundClick or anything like that, but he was kind enough to provide several songs for me to use on the shows, and especially in light of the interview proceeding, I thought that it was somewhat fitting to play that particular song called Thunder Island, and that's by my good buddy Barry Cooney. Thanks a lot for listening. I will forward any information that he chooses to give me in order to be able to download his music if he so chooses. But he was kind enough to let me play it tonight on the show, and I'm very grateful to him for that. So thanks a lot, Barry. I love you. The opening music, as always, is provided by Pat Carr. Pat Carr is an amazing musician, originally out of the Louisiana area, and you can reach him at cartunes@pwcarmusic.com. Check him out on SoundClick. Please buy his albums and support him. He's a really great guy, and his songs are used on all of the intros and exits for my shows. Since we're on the subject of how to contact and credit for things, I'd like to share with you Matt's Facebook channel. It's called The Show Me Baby. It's spelled capital THE, capital SHOWMEBBY, The Show Me Baby. Please go to his site and check out some previous videos that he's done. He's recently just come out with another live video. It's actually over 3 hours, and it's a series of his live videos from the point of him traveling down to the areas in which he was going to be working, donating his time to Hurricane Harvey victims, and particularly, even if you don't have time to scroll through or listen to the whole video, there are some very interesting tidbits of information in there throughout. A lot of it, the first part of it is him traveling and, just kind of updates from him on the road. But from 2:14 on, I would suggest that if you can't catch anything else from that video, if you don't have time to listen initially, at least start at 2:14 and go forward. It shows him at the church where they're doing the rescue work, where they're gathering supplies, and he'll tell you a little bit more about some things that weren't in the initial video about his experiences there. And then for all of those naysayers out there who are attacking him and saying that his story is not true, from 2:27 on, there's a man that comes on that worked with him during this mission and can corroborate his story. And at that point, also, both gentlemen share some more details of the story that they weren't able to in the initial feeds. I understand that there is a little bit of misinformation in the beginning of that video, only because at the time, the guys that were down there, that were left there, if you've heard his first video, which was my time at Hurricane Harvey, look that up. I've shared it on my Facebook for those of you who are on my Facebook. But he explains a little more, both gentlemen actually explain a little more as to why there was misinformation. It was because they were left there and they were trying to obtain whatever valuable information that they could, and they were going off of different reports from different people who at times may have been providing them some incorrect information. As far as I'm concerned, if you listen from 2:14 on, it really leads, it gives you more credence into his story. It tells you a little bit more about why during his initial feeds he wasn't sharing a lot of information. And as you can probably understand or empathize with, it's because at the time he was trying to protect the guys that were with him, that were helping him. And he didn't want to necessarily divulge their identities. Some of the people, as he discusses in his video, my live videos from Harvey Aftermath, he actually tells you that there were some political figures that were maybe not directly, but indirectly involved. And so he didn't want to divulge some of their identities in order to protect them because they were helping he and his people down there. As with any video that goes viral or draws attention to it, any video, in my experience, that has any kind of credibility to it, what I've discovered is he's been a victim of a lot of people taking his initial video, my time at Hurricane Harvey, and chopping it up and adding it to their own sensationalist videos, maybe putting a couple pictures in there, putting their own opinions in, and then just sliding his stuff in and maybe doing an ending. And some of the videos are quite disturbing in nature. This happens in our field. It can happen to any one of us. If we've got our stuff out there on YouTube, it's very easy for an unscrupulous individual to steal that and take it and put it into a part of their video and put whatever kind of slant that they would like to put on it. Some of the videos that I've seen in regards to him where it's been done were very hateful in nature and really couldn't be farther from the truth of the essence of what he was down there trying to do. But that's one of the things that I wanted to clarify a little bit more with Matt when he came on. And unfortunately, truthfully, the recording system that I used showed only a few minutes left. So we had to end the interview kind of abruptly, and aside which he needed to get some things done so that he could get out of town. He had some things he had to go to, and he needed to leave. So I didn't want to hold him up anymore, but I appreciate him taking the time out to share with us as much as he has and to take the time out to talk to us. One of the things that I encourage people to do as they listen not only to my shows but my interviews that I do is to have discernment and to collect all of the information, the viable information that's out there, and then make a judgment based on what you personally feel. I realize that a lot of people will listen to this man's testimony and say that it's hogwash. But when you look at the expressions on the man's face as he goes through that video, when you listen to his words, it just seems as though it couldn't be scripted. I know that from the initial one, the one that I shared, my time at Hurricane Harvey, people have said to me, he's pausing, he's looking up, he looks confused. You have to understand that if any of you have family in the military or have dealt at all with PTSD, typically, these people have to emotionally withdraw to be able to get through a situation. So it's very difficult, not only being in the thick of it, but just recently having come out of it, to, as he put so succinctly, to decompress. And they have to deal with that. It's just like a wartime effort. They have to deal with the lives that they saved, the expressions on the people's faces, people that were around them and their emotions at the time, the things that they had to personally witness, the struggles that they had to go through daily when they were down there, just to be able to survive themselves. They were left there, they were abandoned. And, if you've worked with anybody with PTSD like I have, or if you know anybody that has served in the military, as I have in my family, you can certainly understand why it would seem at times that initial video was stilted, or maybe he couldn't remember the proper names of the dams or certain cities or churches, also keeping in mind that they moved around quite a bit. So being overly exhausted for several days, not getting adequate sleep, rest, things like that would definitely influence the way that a person carried themselves, not even at the moment, but when they came home. They're still trying to catch up on sleep. They're still trying to collect their thoughts. They're still trying to absorb everything that they've been through, right? And break it all out and try and make sense of it all. And then deal with the emotional issues that they had to face when they were down there, the hardship that he had to witness, people going through, the desperation, trying to get in supplies, food and water to people that he knew so desperately needed them. And that's where my live videos from Harvey aftermath. At the end, he shares a video of a gentleman that came into their camp and some of the other people that he worked with, observations of why that gentleman was there. Some of the information that is shared on that video that was obviously just taped from a phone, standing out in the dark. It was an impromptu thing. Obviously, to me, none of that was scripted. So just, give that some thought and show this man some empathy, because I do believe his story. He's got video footage to prove that he was in the areas that he said he was. As the man who corroborates his story, and I apologize, I didn't catch his name. I don't even know if he threw it. Says so colorfully. I didn't see any of you guys that are questioning us and what we did. And then he talks about some of the things that Matthew was able to achieve with the help of other people. I didn't see any of you down here helping. Where are you? You're basically sitting behind a computer, spewing off your opinion, berating somebody, accusing somebody, and you were nowhere in sight. What I have to ask people when they approach me from that aspect, what personally did you do to help these victims? What did you do to help the victims of any natural disaster? What did you do to help your local community? What did you do to help the elderly person down the street? So many of us find it so quick to jump and to judge, but what have we actually done ourselves to help people? Judgment's not a thing that I really try to get into because I don't want anybody to judge me. And I really make an honest effort to try and help people, as I really believe in my heart this man did. And so if you have a problem with that and you don't believe it, no, you don't have to listen to the show. It doesn't kill me, But there are a lot of people out there that do want to hear these insights and do want to hear these people's stories. And so as they are presented to me, I'm going to take that opportunity. If I didn't think that he was telling the truth, he wouldn't have been interviewed by me. So there you go. And I'm sure as time goes on, because of the people that he's worked with, more and more information will come to light. More things will come to the surface that further serve to substantiate some of his statements. I'm just thankful for the opportunity to have spoken to him. And the people with the Louisiana Cajun Navy and, the Texas people, all of you for pulling together and helping each other. From my heart, I don't have any family down there, but I have lots of friends down there. Thank you. Thank you. Just in the essence of humanity, for helping out other people and showing how good citizens can come together and help each other in their times of crisis. Thank you. I'd like to share some information that I have for some donation sites that you can specify where you would like the donation sent. http://www.sparkworldwide.org. Feed Our Vets. Look up Feed Our Vets. They're trying to obtain grocery cards for veterans from Harvey, and I'm sure they're doing the same now for victims of the other areas that have been afflicted. Samaritan's Purse, P.O. Box 3000, Boone, North Carolina, 28607, 828-262-1980. That's tax deductible. Episcopal Relief and Development, P.O. Box 7058, Merrifield, Virginia, 22116-7058, also tax deductible. So there are a couple of organizations in which you can request specifically where you would like your donations to be sent. Now, I am aware of that in the video. The people, Matt and his people, were talking about how supplies were not getting through, how they were being blocked in the event of an emergency or disaster. So again, this would be a time for me to encourage everybody to get to know your community and your neighbors and your local churches and organizations that will be there to help you in your time of need and support them, network with them, get to know them. Certainly, please contact the Show Me Baby, capital THE, capital SHOWMEBBY. Contact him through his YouTube videos. You can put comments underneath and get a hold of him. And I'm sure that he will be able to direct you to where to send money to people that still need it in the Houston area, in the Texas area. I'm sure that he would be able to forward along your offer of donation to verifiable people that he's worked with to make sure that the goods and the money go directly to the people. So thanks very much for listening, everybody. I really appreciate your time, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.